So my co-host on the Girl Camper podcast, Janine Pettit, may be all about seasonal camping this year, but I'm all about overlanding and boondocking. And if you're into that too, then today's podcast is for you because I'm interviewing Azure O'Neill from Overland Expos. Stay tuned. So welcome everyone to today's podcast. I am really excited to have Azure O'Neill on from Overland Expo, and she is going to kind of give us the one-on-one on what overlanding is. So Azure, thank you for coming on today's show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So can you tell us what is overlanding? And it comes, I think, in a lot of different names, but overlanding seems to be the big buzzword these days. So tell us what that is.
Yeah, I think overlanding is definitely a buzzword these days. And I think that you could receive as many different answers to that question as the number of people you ask. So overlanding's history kind of began in Australia, from what I largely understand. And I think many countries could probably lay claim to this, but it was kind of this tradition of people traveling very long distances in a vehicle dependent manner. And that's kind of, I think, the basis of the evolution of overlanding now is that it is vehicle based, self reliant travel. So perhaps a journey that one might, choose to take a train or fly in a plane or even take a ship to go on. Instead of doing that, they're traveling in a vehicle from point A to B to C in a vehicle dependent manner. And I think the other part of the technical definition of overlanding that my friend Graham Jackson uh, honed is that the purpose of the journey is the journey itself. It's not
I
the
love that.
destination.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah. 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 Because overlanding, incorporates different aspects of things, boondocking, dry camping, dispersed camping, all those terms that I think people can be very familiar with. But overlanding really incorporates the journey. It's not just, oh, I'm going to go to one place, camp, and that's kind of it and come back. It's more of the getting there, and then where else are you going and what else are you doing? Wouldn't you kind of agree?
Absolutely. And I think there are so many different ways to do it. When I was traveling through South America, I spent a lot of time going from, cute little Airbnb to cute little hotel to maybe not so cute little hotel and camping in between for sure. But sometimes it's in some countries and in some places, it's just easier to find places to, maybe actually shack up for an evening instead of pop up your tent. So there's all the
Right.
ways to do it.
Well, and let's talk about the vehicles. Like, what type of vehicles or campers do you see people using for overlanding?
That's one of my favorite things about our shows actually, is we just see people from every background, every walk of life, every socioeconomic status, you can imagine. And you will have people come to our events who are, on the Pan American Highway traveling from the bottom of Argentina to Alaska on 200cc motorcycles, like these little tiny itty bitty motorcycles that can't go very fast. I personally began, my journey in overlanding in a Toyota Camry around Australia and drove some pretty tough roads in that little Toyota Camry, but it did just fine. And I had a great time. I filled it with, a ground tent, a cooler, some light cooking supplies, but that was what I was able to afford at the time. And I had a pretty incredible adventure. And then, of course, at our events, we also see these incredible, you know, very, very elaborate and high end build outs, Unimogs, beautiful teardrop trailers. Really kind of runs a gamut. Of course, RVs, van. I think anything that you can sleep in or on or next to can be a vehicle that you can overland with.
That's perfect because we like to say here at Go Camper, there is no wrong way to camp like a girl. Camp in your car, your tent, your camper, your cabin, whatever. And I think overlanding really embodies that because, like you said, you know, go off in a little Toyota Camry with, you know, a $20 tent, or you've got these multi-million-dollar earth roamer type vehicles that are out there. I mean, it really does run the gambit out there. And I can say from an RV manufacturer standpoint, we're definitely seeing a bigger trend in the manufacturers wanting to design more models for the overlander in mind. They're coming more equipped with solar, longer lasting lithium batteries, higher clearances, more rugged tires and axle. It's really fun to see.
It is. It's definitely amazing to see kind of what the development in the industry has brought.
So we talked a little about the vehicles. What are some essential pieces of gear that you would recommend that people have with them when they go overlanding?
That's a great question, and it's honestly one of my favorite questions to kind of talk about with folks. I think that more than any piece of gear that you can purchase to bring on a trip, the most important things that you can bring along are an excellent mindset and
Mm.
a really high level of preparedness. I think coming into any kind of journey with the right attitude, of open-mindedness, of, being able to go with the flow, of, uh, not getting too stressed out, slowing down, employing creative problem solving where necessary, being open to meeting new people and having new experiences. I think that those are incredibly important frames of mind to bring to a journey. And then on the preparedness side, I mean, you can buy the highest end recovery equipment. You can buy, a fully kitted out first aid kit. But if you haven't invested in preparing for the journey with, off-road training, perhaps first aid training, taking maybe a couple of how to cook on the road camp classes kind of things.
Mm.
If you haven't done that, you're not really setting yourself up for success with the tools that you've invested in. So I think that, mentality and preparedness are the most important gear that you can kind of be set up with.
So true. I mean, I think from a seasoned camper perspective, um, y- things go wrong. We'd like to think that camping is always a perfect experience, but oftentimes something goes wrong, and you just really have to learn to go with the flow, and it's okay. It's a growing experience, and it helps us learn to adapt and kinda somewhat enjoy life a little bit more. So I can't agree with you more. The more prepared, the more you can, kinda relax and just go with it, the better it's gonna be, you know? So
Um,
you kinda hit on a little bit on the planning. How does someone go about finding locations and route and, where they can go overlanding? Where are there any particular tools or apps or anything out there that you would recommend to people?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, many people are familiar with apps like Gaia and All Trails. I know that the RV community has a couple of really great apps that are have user generated information. I used iOverlander a lot in my travels
Yeah.
and found that to be a really useful tool when it came to, rolling into a town and maybe needing to find a mechanic, or if I was coming up on a border crossing, being able to say, okay, like, what do I need to know about the border crossing between, um, you know, Panama and Colombia? It's by sea, right? Like, what do I need to know here? And you can get the most up to date information, hopefully, from travelers who have just gone through recently. So that's some really helpful. That's a really helpful app. But personally, I don't go anywhere without a map. And I'm a big believer in traditional, map-based travel and travel planning. I just participated in the Rebel Rally last year and got to really enjoy using a compass, which was a lot of fun. Um, but I've always just found that when you have a map, it allows you to really have a wonderful sense of where you are in the world. So if you're using a device that's this big, you're only seeing that much of the map. But if you're traveling through a region and you look at the road you're taking, you can get a better sense of, maybe elevation changes. Maybe there's a really beautiful lake, that's a few miles off the road that way, or some kind of cool, geological feature going that way. But if it's just off of that frame that you would see on your phone or your GPS device, you might never know about it. So being able to have a map to really kind of get a sense of, okay, what's around me, I think is really important. And then with overland travel, being able to pull out a map, and especially in countries where maybe you don't speak the language as well, it's a really great way to connect with people, and to get some really great local advice. I mean, the number of times where like I've pulled out a map at a gas station and, gone up to someone and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't speak your language very well. We're here, I'm going there, should I take this road or that road? And they'll be like, oh, no, 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 take this road. It's prettier, and stop here because there's a really great taco stand. It's stuff like that, which just for me makes the journey. So I love that.
Well, and the other thing with the map is you never have to worry about not having cell service or the battery going dead.
Exactly.
So super important to have, and always a great souvenir too, to show people on the big picture where exactly you've been. So
Yeah.
I'm a fan of maps too, very much. What are some of the common challenges or unexpected issues that overlanders might face, that you've heard of? What's something is there anything kind of like a fun, weird story or anything that you've heard about?
Oh goodness, a fun, weird story. I think everyone kind of has their own kind of stuff that they deal with while traveling. I have a friend who spent 8 years overlanding around the world, and was really worried about a flat tire, right? Like, was really worried about getting a flat. Well, he was traveling through Italy and encountered a pair of bicyclists on the side of the road with a flat tire. And, he was like, oh, I've got all the tools to fix that here on my motorcycle. I'll stop and help them. So helped them fix their tire. They were dressed in kind of strange looking white tracksuits. They were very polite, very nice. And they turned out to be priests from the Vatican, and they blessed his trip. And
Oh,
in 8 years of travel, he never once had a flat. So it's kind of one of those things, sometimes the things that we fear most, never happen, or the things we're completely unprepared for do. But I think that, you know, being open to seeing the silver lining in these moments is really, for me, it's always been a really good way to kind of work through some of the more stressful challenges that come up, and, being able to see, okay,
Okay.
this is not an ideal situation, but here I've met this wonderful person as a result, or I got to spend a little more time in this town waiting for parts to arrive and got to know these people I wouldn't have otherwise known. I think it's just, any any kind of strange challenge could arise. It just depends on the flavor of the day for you as a traveler, but being able to look at it and think, okay, I don't like this, but how can I feel better about it?
I always like to say it can always be worse. I just got back from a trip to Honduras with my husband, and we had a very inconvenient flight home that kind of caused us to be about 12 hours late than we had expected. And he was quite upset with it, and I kept telling him it always could always be worse. And literally, we found out from another couple that was in our group that not only had they had a similar experience getting to Honduras, but when they got back to San Diego, they found out that their car had been stolen at the airport. So it
Uh,
can always be worse.
yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly. Count your blessings, because
it can always be
you
worse.
don't know it's been what you've been saved from.
Yeah. So something that's really important with Girl Camper is the community and the networking
Mm.
that our organization brings. And and that can kind of play into that safety and preparedness and helpfulness. On a recent trip that I was on out to California for Girl Camper, my car broke down, and lo and behold, a Girl Camper texted me when she saw that I'd broken down on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm 20 miles away from you. Do you need to stay at my house?" I'd never met her before,
Mm.
and I ended up being stuck there for a week. But that sense of community is so important and nice. Do you have that, do you think, in the overlanding community too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a bit of a story, but, when you were asking about, traveling, and challenges, I think one of a large fear a lot of people have with overland travel is, what happens if I get in an accident? And,
Mm.
traveling around the US certainly have a really incredible network of people. We have groups like Girl Camper, Overland Expo has a Facebook page. There are many little, regional groups as well. And it's always possible to just reach out and ask for help. But when I was traveling in Mexico, I had some young man comment on one of my photos, and he said, "Hey, I live in Mexico City, but my dad lives in Guanajuato. If you ever need any help, please let us know, and I'd love to meet you, when you get to Mexico City." And I said, "Okay, that's cool. Like we're good now, but I'll reach out when we get to Mexico City and maybe we can connect." And you know, 2 or 3 weeks later, totally forgotten about that interaction and that message, and was riding into Guanajuato, and I don't know if you're familiar with what a tope is, but they're like little round bowling balls that, are arranged to be speed bumps in Mexico,
Okay,
and
yeah.
they're very dangerous for motorcyclists. And I was blinded by the sun setting, hit one just the wrong way, and
Mm.
I crashed in the middle of this highway going into Guanajuato. And it was like right where the roads diverged on the highway. And this woman stopped traffic behind me, stopped her truck, stopped traffic behind me, and she was, yelling at me in Spanish. And she was asking, "Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital? Can I help you?" And she kept saying something about her husband, but I was in shock and I was like, "No, no, keep going, it's okay." So, got my bike back up, got off the road. I was really beat up, but okay, fortunately. Got my bike to a hotel just in Guanajuato, and Guanajuato is a huge city. It's not a small place. And thought about it and was like, I should message that guy who said his dad lived in Guanajuato. Like, there's some things that need to be fixed on my bike.
Mm.
So reached out to him, got connected with his dad within a matter of minutes. And his dad was, very quick. We'll make a plan. Come to my house tomorrow. I have this, I have that. You can stay here. And he was like, "Oh, by the way, do you remember the woman in the green truck? That was my wife." And
Oh,
I was just like, whoa, that
wow.
is totally wild. And that kind of stuff, I have to say, I hear about happening all the time for other people. It certainly happened numerous times for me on my trip where just the overlanding community and people who aren't even part of the community, but who, appreciate a sense of adventure and someone who's out there doing something a little bit different, would just come together to want to be a part of it and want to help me along, and I've certainly helped other people along as well, and it's a really joyful thing to be able to do that and be part of community of overlanders, a community of adventure travelers, a community of campers, everyone who's kind of in our the space that we all like to play in.
So overlanding, it really takes you into take you into the backcountry and into some really pristine natural environments. What are some of the best practices that help minimize the environmental impact when you're overlanding?
Well, I know that, you guys have a great relationship with Leave No Trace. We at Overland Expo love them as well. We work closely with Tread Lightly. They have some really great guidelines that they've set forth for how to, adventure in nature responsibly. And I think it's really important to understand, kind of the whys behind those premises as well. For example, one is, make sure you stay on the trail. Don't, go off
Mhm.
the trail and I think it's
Can't
really
can't on durable surfaces.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's really important to recognize that, there are, some areas of our country where, if you're breaking through a crust that's formed on the top of the ground that may look like nothing to you, it's actually made up of organisms that have taken millions of years to develop. And if you drive over them, it's gonna take, however long for them to regenerate, and you've just destroyed a really important part of that ecosystem. So I think it's just kind of understanding the whys behind the principles that it's really important as well. But, for us at Overland Expo, really critical that we make sure we're helping people access this information to begin with, because as I'm sure you saw with Girl Camper, we saw a huge explosion in overlanding and in, the general camping, off-roading community after the pandemic. And it's just really important that all of these wonderful new folks who are joining us understand how to interact with the places that we treasure for our adventures in a way that makes sure that we'll be able to utilize them and enjoy them for many years and many generations to come.
Very true. Well, and, another big complaint we hear from people that are new into camping and seasoned campers is that it's so hard to find a spot at a campground. Where if you're overlanding or boondocking or, things like that, you don't necessarily have to stay at a campground.
Mhm.
You can find BLM ground, Forest Service, different ways like that. So, that definitely helps learning these different things, how to take some of that pressure off where am I gonna camp tonight? And
Abs
being able to do these things.
Oh, it's great, and I mean, the thing I love about, public lands is you don't, wake up listening to anyone else's generator or, hearing someone in a ground tent nearby snoring. It's just a pretty magical experience, but yeah, making sure that we treat those places in a manner where we leave them better than we found them, or at least the same is really critical.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So you've touched a little bit on Overland Expos. Tell us about those. I've been to your one down in Loveland, Colorado, had an absolute fabulous time. Cannot wait to go again this late August, when you have the next one. But tell us about your expos because you have them all over the country. When are they? What are they? How long have you been doing them? Who should go? Give us the 411 on them.
All the things. All right. Well, I'll start off with how long, because we actually just celebrated our 15th anniversary at Overland Expo
Wow,
West. Yep. So Roseanne Hanson started Overland Expo in 2009.
a
And
woman,
yeah,
a
well,
woman. Love
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And she is, oh my gosh, like superhero, total icon. I really look up to her. She's just an incredible woman, in our community, and I'm just grateful to know people like that exist in the world, honestly. But yeah, she started Overland Expo, and, since she began Overland Expo in Arizona, we have added 3 more events, and we've gone through a couple of ownership changes. But we have events now, so Arizona Flagstaff event is in May. Then our next event this summer is, our Overland Expo Pacific Northwest event in Redmond, Oregon. And then the end of August, we have our Overland Expo Mountain West event in Loveland, Colorado.
Yay.
And then in October, the beginning of October, we have our Overland Expo East event in Arlington, Virginia. So 4 events. They kind of range from, the smallest being our Overland Expo East event, which is like super kind of intimate and community driven and just very beautiful, but it can be a little bit chilly there. To Overland Expo West, which is, I think we saw 30,000 people there this year. So it's a massive event. Um, our events are kind of comprised of I guess kind of 4 different kind of areas, if you will. We have a really great camping audience and love the kind of sense of community that develops in our campgrounds. It's always really cool during Overland Expos to kind of go through the campgrounds and be a bunch of random people who never knew one another before the event, gathered around one person's, propane fire pit and, sharing stories, talking about, their different gear setups and everything. So that's always really fun. We have a huge exhibitor midway. At our events, we usually have between, I think, like 270 to 400 exhibitors who, yeah, I know they're massive, massive exhibitor midways. But they sell everything from, tiny little camp kitchen cups to the multi-million dollar, expedition vehicles you mentioned and everything in between, ground tents, rooftop tents, pop-up tents, all the things. And many really interesting companies have started coming to our events as well that are kind of in, kind of not that you would necessarily think of when you think of overlanding, but you're like, oh yeah, I would use that as an overlander. So that's neat too. Um, we have a great day path audience. Love that at all of our events, especially because for families who aren't quite ready to camp with their kids, it makes it possible for them to all come to Overland Expo together. And then, save the best for last, and I'm a little biased about it, but I'm the director of our educational programming at Overland Expo, hence the bias. But we have a really great educational program at, all of our shows. Usually have between 8 and 10 different teaching areas that have classes scheduled in all of them from the beginning of each day, 9 AM to 5 PM. And the subject matter that you can learn about in those areas can range from, simple camp cooking recipes to advanced recovery classes, hands-on bushcraft type classes, learning how to, tie knots or forage for food, first aid classes. It really just runs the gamut. And we kind of utilized our education area at the event to create an event within the event because we do know they're so large. But it's a really cool space where, you know, we're having, curated education for women who wander this year. We're launching that, which I'm really excited about. And a storytelling pavilion. So we've got, content creators sharing their tips and tricks and, kind of how they make their videos pop and gather this huge following. So it's a fun event. It's super multifaceted. We have film festivals and parties and happy hours, and it's really just kind of one of those things where it sounds cliche, but there truly is something for everyone there, even if they're not into overlanding.
I can vouch for that, and yeah, just your educational lineup, it is amazing. There is something there for everyone, for every age, because you have stuff for kids to going on. I mean, this is like an RV show on steroids in my mind. I mean, I don't even wanna really call it an RV show because there's so much more to it, but for anybody who's been to kind of the typical RV outdoor show and you're seeing the boats and the campers and the four-wheelers, uh-uh, this is something different and exciting and very interactive and a lot of fun, and, I know, like, at the one I was at in Colorado, they actually had a test track where I think you could drive either the motorcycle. Yeah, I know you could test drive the motorcycles they had, but then the test track was maybe for Jeeps or some type of vehicles that you could drive on, and
Yeah,
maybe it was your own vehicles. I didn't do it obviously, but I remember seeing that thinking, that's a neat thing to be able to do."
yeah, it's different at each event, honestly, and it's always so exciting. We had, Ineos at Overland Expo West, which was really cool. We have a BF Goodrich, tire ride and drive coming up at our Pacific Northwest event, and I'm not sure what it is yet for Loveland, but I'll be sure to let you know when I figure it out, and we're looking forward to having you there with us, Lisa.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah.
So where can people find more information about the expo?
Overlandexpo.com is our website, and then our handle on all of the socials is at Overland Expo.
And do you encourage people to buy tickets in advance to it? Do they the price go up on the day of the event or sell out? Or I think definitely for the camping, if you wanna go camping, you probably wanna get your reservation in as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Camping does sell out, but we do not sell out like day pass tickets. Those are always available.
So, Azure, tell us, what do you think the future looks like for overlanding? Do you see any trends that are on the horizon?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I'll say there are probably 3 primary trends that we're really seeing. One of them is just this just massive increase in the number of families that we're seeing
Mm.
attend our shows, but also out traveling. And that's just really wonderful to see. At our last show, Overland Expo West, we saw the largest number of little children with their families. We're used to seeing kind of like, kids who are 8, 9, or 10, or older teenagers, or, whatever it happened to be. But it was just a ton of like little babies and toddlers coming around with their families, which were so cool. And that's in part because you've got families like, Hourless Life, Eric and Brittany, who are, sharing their journey through South America right now on social media and YouTube. The Hart family, they're also, I think they've got 5 kids, 4 kids. Don't They'll have to forgive me if they see this, but But they're doing some really amazing things and taking trips, all around the country together, and they're inspiring people, and people are seeing that they can travel with their families and getting out, which is just awesome to see. The other big trend that we're seeing that we've seen over the past several years, and it's now, I think, gotten to the point where it's like, boom, is women in overlanding. And it just makes my heart sing. I just absolutely love that. And so we're seeing many more women attending our events solo, but also with partners. So hence the creation of our Women Who Wander Pavilion this year, where it's just all, education that's tailored for women. We address a lot of security and safety concerns while traveling. We have a self-defense instructor who comes to our classes, or teaches classes at our events, and talks about mental preparedness and trusting your intuition, and just being situationally aware. So really love that about our event, that we're not only able to see trends, but also cater to providing for them. And then the other one that's really neat to see is the electric vehicle trend that's happening right now. So more and more companies are coming out with EVs, and they're also coming out with ways to support overlanders who are choosing to travel that way, which is just very cool to see.
That is neat. We're definitely seeing a trend with e-bikes being, you know, the norm at campgrounds, and e-bike companies wanting to design their e-bikes to be more portable and, easier for women to transport, and then having, wheels on 'em that are more diverse, more of like a mountain bike wheel on them. So, they're a lot of fun. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm loving seeing that. That's been very cool.
I am too. I am too. Azure, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been really fun to talk to you. Overlanding is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I was excited to have you come on and talk to us about it and about the Overland Expos that are coming up. Remind people again, where can they get more information about the expos?
Sure thing. Overlandexpo.com or social media at Overland Expo. And just really happy to be here speaking with you. I think love what Girl Camper is doing, and getting women out there and inspiring them, and empowering them to head out there and enjoy nature. Nothing better.
Awesome. Thank you. And come see me in August at the Overland Expo in Loveland, Colorado. I'll be there. So,
Can't wait. It's going to be
yeah.
awesome.
So
Thanks, Lisa.
thanks. So that's our show for today. Thank you for watching or listening if you're podcasting. And if you're interested in going to an Overland Expo, please check them out. Chances are I am going to be at the expo that is in Colorado in late August. So come join me, find me, come camp with me there. I think it'll be really fun. And if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to tap the like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Connect with Grow Camper online in our website, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to look at all of our events that our Girl Camper Guides have planned and join us in the fun. Until next week, I'm Lesa McDermott, and I will catch you by the campfire.